questions about President Biden's candidacy. Maksym Skrypchenko is a foreign policy expert specializing in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, and Russia. He's also the president of the Transatlantic Dialogue Center. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us today. So most of the questions after Biden's speech last night were really about his campaign and decision to stay in the race, not NATO necessarily. So how did the president come off on the world stage?
First of all, thank you for having me. Good morning. So for us, for Ukraine, you know, this summit is historical. We were waiting for an invitation to be extended to Ukraine. So it's a bit of disappointment that this year we have a breach to NATO membership. It is the irreversible path in the wording for the NATO membership, but still it's more about very practical commitment of air defense systems, of financial commitment, like 40 billion euro a year from the NATO allies. But anyway, it's kind of a bit disappointing that still President Biden, his administration, did not facilitate the process of giving Ukraine a very specific timeline for joining NATO. And that's actually what French President Macron said recently, that the United States and Germany are those two countries whose leaders do not actually support Ukraine's membership, NATO membership very soon. So it's kind of disappointing for now, but still we are trying to work on that, to advocate that, and let's see what happens in the next years.
And people remember the start of this war. You know, what Putin said at the time that no one quite believed, at least not fully believed, was that he didn't want Ukraine to join NATO, and Ukraine's desire to join NATO, and he didn't want that to happen, so that's when he decided to put boots on the ground here. Now we're a while into this war, and billions of dollars spent, and God knows how many lives lost. But the bottom line in terms of NATO is that there's a difference between countries supporting this war and, as a member of NATO, obligated to fight in it, because NATO membership comes, of course, with the Article 5 promise. And you know, they don't want to necessarily, they want to help Ukraine and support as much as we can, but a lot of those countries don't want to really be directly drawn into this war. That's the real reality here. And that, do you ever foresee that changing as long as this war continues to drag on with no clear end in sight?
Right, so we don't actually believe that the NATO allies should fight for us right now in Ukraine. So what we are saying here is that we understand that Ukraine will not be a member of the NATO till the war is, you know, finished. So until we have like a peace solution. So what we are saying is, give us the timeline for like a couple of years after the war is over, Ukraine is joining NATO. So we and President Zelensky has reconfirmed that we do not expect the Western allies to come and fight for us. But we believe that it will be the best solution ever to have Ukraine as part of the NATO. If Ukraine was part of the NATO before, Russia would never attack, and you wouldn't have to spend billions of dollars here. So that's one point. The second point is that we believe that President Putin is using the word, you know, escalation a lot, because for now, Ukraine is closest to NATO membership than before the start of the full-scale invasion. So and I believe that it's one of the problems that we face, is that Russia is using the word escalation very well, and the West is really scared of that escalation. And from our point of view, we do not believe into, you know, 99% of what Russian president says about like what there will be their reaction on that and on this. But the Western leaders are too much scared, and we understand why. You don't want to send your, you know, sons and daughters to the war, but you don't have to. That's not what we ask for.
And real quick, I'm curious as to how it's playing out. American politics is watched around the world. So when you look ahead to November, and I think arguably the growing possibility that Donald Trump will be reelected, he has a very different stance and posture and language toward Ukraine and toward Putin. What concerns, if any, do you have about what a change in American presidency would mean for the conflict?
Right. So first of all, you know, President Trump was the first person to send lethal weapons to Ukraine, not President Obama. So I think we should see what happens next after November. I wouldn't be so pessimistic as some of the media reports are. We should keep trying as Ukraine. We should keep trying to advocate for Ukraine's support within the two major political parties in the U.S. And I believe that's something that we can do, and we have a lot of supporters inside the Republican Party. So, and we have very strong arguments for President Trump or whoever else that the U.S. should continue supporting Ukraine. So that's it. I believe that we're gonna do whatever possible to maintain the bipartisan support.
All right, Maksym Skrypchenko, thank you so much for joining us and providing us some insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Jay.